This is the Concealed Carry Podcast, Season 11, Episode 5. And welcome to the Concealed Carry Podcast, part of the concealedcarry.com network, brought to you by HK. Today is Thursday, February 20th, 2015. As of the recording of this episode, I am your host, Riley Bowman, and joined today by co-host Jacob Paulson.
That's right. I'm Jacob. And Riley is the man who did almost 4 million steps last year. And I think this year we'll do over 5 million steps.
Maybe. Okay.
I think so.
The daily goal is 12,000 steps a day. I've made my goal today. If I average 12,000 per day for 365 days, it'll be around that, like 4-point-something million. Yeah.
Yeah, but you'll do more than that. Because, I'm looking at if you're pacing, like the mass, if we looked at if we charted it last year, the majority of your steps are in the second half of the year. Like your volume dramatically increased in the second half of the year. So if you did 4 million last year, it's not a reach to do 5 million this year at your current pace.
But my goal is to hit 12,000 a day.
Okay. It's a lot of steps. The takeaway is Riley
I'm
is
not planning
on
doing as many steps in this, this year each day as what I did in the latter half of last year, because the month of October, I think it was, I was averaging 24,000 a day. I'm not doing that anymore. Anyway, it was good while it lasted. So, and Jacob's a guy that's absolutely thrilled about his still relatively new Garmin smartwatch.
Yes, I am. Yes, I'm very thrilled about it. Garmin, if there's any Garmin employees listening or watching this right now, we should talk.
Right. Well, I got my Garmin on too. Mine's a different model, but I like it also very much. Anyway, this episode's not sponsored by Garmin, but welcome to sponsor if they'd like. It is sponsored, however, by our friends over at CCW Safe. You actually just heard yesterday, or most recently, the episode was with the president of CCW Safe, Kent Brown. So you've probably heard quite a bit about them, but they are also officially recognized as sponsor of today's episode as well. Partly why, because we have, by tradition, made them the sponsor of every Justified Saves episode. And that's what today's episode happens to be. And it's been too long since we've done a Justified Saves episode.
Yeah, lots to choose from.
Yes, lots to choose from. And there's no shortage of stories. Like we've talked about this before. There's never a shortage.
Yeah, you didn't have to go far. You found all of today's stories, but most of them are from the last 2 weeks.
2 weeks, yeah. And there's more. So that's the remarkable thing. When we talk about the best research that we know of to date on defensive gun uses, or as we call them, justified saves in the country, there's probably 1.2 million at least that we have a sense for justified saves or defensive gun uses each year in America. That means it's a lot.
It's a lot.
Not all of them hit the news. Not all of them even get reported. That's actually kind of relevant and important to recognize. But they happen. And we're going to share a few of those stories with you here today. You're going to stick around because there's some really good ones. In fact, I'll tease one here in a moment that you're going to really want to stick around for. Today's episode is also sponsored by KSG Armory Holsters. KSG Armory is our brand of holsters. We got dudes out in a shop just on the other side of that wall making some right now as we speak. They are fantastic, top of the line, high quality holsters made by people who care about the quality of product they make, people that actually use the product on a daily basis. All of our guys carry in a KSG Armory holster every day, all day long. Jacob, you and I, we carry all day, every day. So these are actually built by people that care and that know it goes into making a quality product because we actually use it every day.
Yeah. And well, this is a bit of a tangent, but I've been reviewing recently, for lots of reasons, old content on our website. And I was looking at, we have these ancient holster reviews from a decade ago. Mm-hmm. And a lot. We've reviewed holsters from 50 holster companies on concealedcarry.com. A lot of those were done by Matthew. And so I was watching a lot of those, and I was just thinking about our evolution. And you can see it as you watch the content, as we grew as shooters, as professionals in this industry. It makes me wonder what we'll know about holsters in a decade from now. But certainly, what we feel confident about, and what we hear the feedback from professionals out there, is that KSG is a top tier provider of the highest quality concealment holsters in the marketplace, and particularly what best suited for those who want to carry IWB and with an emphasis on appendix carry.
Absolutely. Yeah. In fact, if you want to learn more about appendix carry, go back and listen to any number of episodes, I think, where we've talked about that. But also, we actually just got a question came in from, I don't know if they were a podcast listener or not, but it came into our support line asking me about help with appendix carry. So I'm not saying that we are the foremost experts in that regard, but we know a thing or two, and we make a thing or two, meaning holsters that support that lifestyle and that method of carry that work really, really well. So thank you, those of you joining us live today, Joseph and Marion, commenting already. Marion's got a question, which we're not going to be able to get into today. It's a bit outside the realm of topics that we're here to discuss today, because we're here today again to discuss about justified save stories. It's been a couple months since we've done a justified saves episode, and so it's time to bring that back. I know people have loved these in the past, and so let's go ahead and start getting into this. But here's a story I was mentioning in the intro here about, that you're going to want to stick around for. There is a mom in Decatur, Illinois, who gets shot twice while defending herself against a home intruder while carrying a baby on her hip.
3 home intruders.
Yeah.
2 of which are armed. Over 30
she
shots
shoots one of
fired.
them, I should say.
Yeah.
Yeah. So crazy, wild story. You're going to want to hear that. Stick around because we're going to come back to that. But first up, we've got a story here. Title of it is Lincolnton Police Shop Employee Shoots at Robbers. We put this in our what not to do category. We've done this for some time now, several years, where we share, maybe even since the beginning. I think we've always pretty much had kind of a what not to do. Maybe didn't always
I don't remember not having
call it that, but this is out of basically the Charlotte, North Carolina area. An attempted robbery was thwarted thanks to an employee who fought back, it says.
Yeah, this was a nasty robbery. So you have the alleged robber who, let's see here, 2 bad dudes go into Dave's vape shop. I'm no expert. I don't have some hard data on this, but I'm going to go out on a ledge and say if you work at a vape shop, you should definitely be armed. Because we see vape shops, smoking vape shops come up in these stories with some frequency. But anyway, so 2 bad dudes go into the vape shop and to rob it. And and then the third one stays in the getaway car. But this gets really bad. It says they assaulted an employee in the store, stole merchandise and cash. So relatively violent robbery.
Yeah. I mean, and this is a classic armed robbery of a store. Well, I guess it didn't say they actually were armed. It doesn't say that, does it?
No, just the
Oh wait, no.
assaulted.
Here we go. At least one had a gun. There we go. There it is.
Oh, okay.
I was like, I
All
feel
right.
like I was missing something there.
Yeah.
So at least there's 3 men involved. By the way, there's one that's in a getaway car. There's 2 men that actually go into the store to rob it, and then it just says at least one had a gun. Well, presumably the getaway driver is the getaway driver. Somebody that goes into the store is going to have a gun.
Let's assume the gun went into the store.
But here's the critical detail and why we put this in the what not to do, because this is it is an armed robbery, which is a forcible felony, which in most states means even if they didn't necessarily have a gun, like you can defend yourself against this. And that's what happens here. But what it says here, and we don't have a lot of details in the actual news report, but it says as these robbers ran from the store, the employee fired a gun at them, hitting one of the robbers. The 2 robbers, it says, later showed up at local urgent care to get medical help, where they were arrested. So we're glad they're caught. The concern here is that it states as they ran from the store, this employee decided at that point to defend themselves. Now, whether that's because they didn't have the opportunity to do so yet, whether they were just waiting for the right opportunity, at least in their mind, meaning that, hey, while they were faced with these robbers, gun in their face, like that was not the time to draw down and try to engage them with your own gun. But either way, the problem here potentially, and this is why we bring it up, because it's a good reminder, and it's been a few months since we've done Justified Saves episode, and I think people need reminders. It's generally not a good idea, and technically can be illegal in many circumstances to shoot somebody that's fleeing from you. It doesn't mean that you can't shoot somebody that's fleeing from you, because that somebody that's fleeing could be fleeing while they're pointing their gun at you. They could be fleeing while they're shooting at you. There's certain circumstances where they could still pose a very much articulable threat. But in this case, we just don't have the details. And as they ran from the store, the employee at that point fired a gun at them, hitting one of them. So that's the potential problem here.
Yeah, and the way this is often phrased when we hear the question is something like, "Well, you can't shoot people in the back." You can't shoot, and we hear that all the time. This cliche idea of you can't shoot people in the back. The law doesn't say you can't shoot people in the back. The law says you have to have an imminent threat.
Yep.
And I think that we equate that, generally speaking, with, well, if someone's running away and you're shooting them in the back, you probably don't have an imminent threat. And that's how that kind of is born out of the true legal doctrine. But yes, it's conceivable you might still have an imminent threat when someone is not facing you or running away, but it seems unlikely in this context.
Yeah. So this is a file it away, put it in that file drawer. It says things not to do or things to be very careful about.
Yeah.
And if your threat, if your robber is making haste to get away, presumably they're no longer a threat.
I think the better, perhaps, or I shouldn't say better, but equally valuable lessons here are, why the delay. So we don't know. We can only postulate. But for example, maybe someone's getting assaulted and they don't have the gun near them. Maybe the gun had to be retrieved from a back room or from a drawer or something like that. So there's a potential lesson about being better prepared for a violent encounter.
Absolutely.
So anyway, there's other things we could postulate.
Absolutely. Now, let's jump to our next story. This is also in our what not to do category. And I'll be honest, I had a hard time. I could have dug a little bit deeper. I could have dug a little bit deeper to find out exactly where this is. It just lists Somersworth, wherever that is. This is reported in Foster's Daily Democrat, an online newspaper. I'm just not sure what state this is in. It doesn't say anywhere. But Somersworth, we had an incident here. 2 report an incident. 1 was arrested. They actually had 2 different calls that came into 911 about 10:45 a.m. This is just a couple weeks ago on a Saturday.
This is a Maine, New Hampshire area.
Okay, cool. All right, thanks for looking that up. So Somersworth, presumably Somersworth, Maine. So we have a 38-year-old individual arrested, charged with firing a gun in the direction of a person in the area. It's in kind of a residential area from what we can ascertain here. So there's an incident and somebody is arrested. That somebody is charged with firing a gun in the direction of somebody. So keep that in mind. Like, what's going on here? This is interesting, and it's also, as you mentioned, Jacob, kind of tricky to follow along.
It's poorly written. I went back after you and I talked, and I read it again, and I think I finally got it. But it's like the opposite of what I first understood.
Right. Why don't you break that down for us?
I think the real narrative is this.
Yep.
I think homeowner perceives someone's trying to break in their house.
Yep.
Homeowner.
That's what it says. That was the second phone call that came into 911 was someone's breaking into my home.
Yes, but the order of the phone calls screwed me up when I was thinking about this. So homeowner has someone trying to break in their home. They fire shots somehow at or in the direction of the person they perceive to be trying to break into their home. Someone who's not the person trying to break into the home, someone else who's in the area, neighborhood, on the street, something like that, feels they're being shot at and calls the police. And that's the first call that the police get is, hey, someone's shooting at me, kind of thing. And then later, the second phone call comes in from the homeowner. Oh, someone just tried to break into my house and I shot at him. But it's the same incident. Just the reporting is getting out of order. Yeah.
And police responded to both. So they get the two calls. 911 calls come in.
Yep.
They figure out, hey, this must be related.
Yeah.
It's from the same area. And this, I get the sense, is a smallish town or community. So it's like, hey, this must be related. They respond. They determine the incidents were connected. These two people knew each other. And the 38-year-old individual that was arrested had indeed fired a gun. Presumably, he is the person that, because he's the one that called and said he fired a gun at somebody trying to break into their home. There could be a little tangent here. about what to say or not to say when you call 911. Uh, I I mean, because like according to the reporting here, man calls 911, says, 911 dispatcher's like, what's the nature of your emergency? And he's like, well, I fired a gun in the direction of or I fired a gun at somebody trying to break into my home. That's an interesting way of reporting your incident. Wouldn't you agree?
I think it's very natural.
Sure.
I think it sounds like what any average normal person would probably be inclined to say. Someone started breaking into my house. I shot at him. I got my gun. I shot at him. Right?
Mhm.
That just seems very
Right.
natural,
Right.
but probably not in your best interest.
I mean, it's going to come out one way or another that a gun was fired, but probably the most important thing to report, if indeed you have a home invasion or an attempted one, is someone just tried to break into my home, or somebody is breaking into my home. Please send, police immediately, kind of thing. And you don't have to say probably much more than that.
Yeah.
I mean, now if you shot somebody and they're wounded, you could say
some
something,
medical rolling,
and you could say something along the lines of, a gun was fired, not necessarily that I fired a gun.
Well, I think you want to inform them that you're armed. I think
You could do that.
responding cops want to
Could
know
do
you got
that.
a gun. I think that the concern here is we don't know if the actions of this homeowner were legal at all.
Mhm.
And so sometimes it's hard to suggest like what you should say when your actions were straight up like bad.
Mhm.
Like if what you did was not
Well,
legal,
I
we don't know. We
I
don't know.
believe the person that did this believed that they had done anything wrong, or I'm not sure why
Sure,
they would
that's a
have
fair
called
assumption.
911. You
But
know what I
people
mean?
think they don't do things wrong all the time when they do
Right.
things wrong.
But that's why we're having this conversation. It's like this is the point of this is helping you, our viewers, and listeners, to not make similar mistakes.
And we don't know if anyone, to be quite clear,
Yeah.
I have no reason to believe this person did anything wrong. For all we know,
Yep.
all of their actions were perfectly legal and justified. We just don't know what
After an investigation, it could come out. Hey,
what was the nature of this
Mhm.
person trying to break in the house? Have they breached the home? Was it violent? Were they making threats? Is there past history? Any number of potential things that would be relevant context. So we don't know any of that.
Yeah.
I'm simply pointing out that it's conceivable since the person was arrested
Yeah.
and has been charged. I presume
with 2 felonies of reckless conduct.
Yeah, so I'm presuming that they saw nothing that could justify the actions.
And again, yes, I mean, there is an investigation that has to run its course, and involved parties are presumed innocent until proven guilty.
Right.
But
right.
here's again, this is the key detail that I've focused in on, and it says here that the gun that was fired, it was shot in the general direction of the other person and into the air near other homes. Okay, so here's really the big point, because we don't know, was there an actual home invasion taking place? The 2 people involved in like two 911 calls knew each other,
Neighbors, presumably, is what I'm getting
neighbors,
from that.
or who knows? Maybe
Yeah.
there was somebody actually jiggling the lock on the door, and the guy fires in that direction. The bullet goes through and towards his neighbor, and his neighbor, anyway. So we just don't know. And the point of this is that it actually doesn't matter, because what's interesting about this, and I think worth for us being the lesson learned, is the gun was fired in the general direction. It's essentially a warning shot, is what this is.
It sounds like a
And
warning
in
shot.
the air, it said.
Yeah.
So that can and is sometimes problematic. In our we've been pretty consistent on this in the whole existence of this podcast, is that warning shots are advised against.
Yeah, generally
Don't use warning
unwise.
shots.
Potentially illegal, generally unwise.
And we say generally or potentially because I'm not going to be the absolutist here and say that there isn't some potential context where it could actually be justifiable or worthwhile or whatever. But
I saw a Jack Ryan movie or TV show where I thought a warning shot was very well used.
But as a practice, don't do it.
Yeah, probably not good.
Don't fire warning shots. And this could actually be a situation where maybe even the guy was justified in using deadly force to defend his home, himself in his home, but the nature of the way he did it was not correct, meaning it put other people at risk.
Yeah, problematic. By the way, I did get some clarification. So Somersworth is New Hampshire,
Okay,
and population just shy of 12,000 people, and it's on the border of Maine.
cool.
Yeah,
Okay, around the border.
yeah,
Gotcha.
yeah.
Eddie watching. Howdy, guys. Watching from Mexico today. Right on, Eddie. That's pretty cool. You're watching us from Mexico. Hopefully things are cool down that way. So anyway, that was kind of an interesting story. Let's get to our next one. These are now what we consider our justified stories. These ones, as we've reviewed as best as we can tell, and so many of these, we don't get a lot of facts, we don't get a lot of details. We read into them as best we can, and the important thing is what are the known facts that 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 we can then apply to our context. Our meaning a very general, you, me, all of you watching or viewing at home or wherever you are. Like, what are the lessons that can be learned from these justified instances of self-defense? So the first story here from WKYT.com: child shoots, kills 2 home intruders in self-defense, police say. I love the story. There's not a lot to it.
No, child is interesting. We get child and we get juvenile. Those
That's
are the two
true.
words we hear. And if you watch the actual news report, the reporter does say under a boy under the age of 18.
Yeah, which technically by law is a child.
Yeah, we don't know.
But it isn't. You're right. The headline says one thing. The actual text of the article says something else. This happened in Manchester, Kentucky, and it says 2 people are dead after a juvenile thwarted a home invasion attempt. This is wild. Wild because, I mean, I have children. You have children. I think about this in that perspective, from that frame of reference of, wow, what if this is my household, my child? Like this is pretty wild stuff. But the police respond to this home. This is just this last weekend, Saturday. Troopers got there. They found 2 men shot, had tried to break into a home and steal firearms from a safe. Interesting
Highly
detail.
specific.
Very,
Come back to that one.
Yep. Says that after the 2 broke in, a juvenile living in the home saw them holding guns and shot them both with a handgun. Interesting. The 2 men were a 44-year-old and 51-year-old. Investigation's ongoing. That's a story.
Yeah.
So what's your take on this?
Let's start with the safe thing. This is interesting. This would suggest this is a very targeted offense.
Right.
So unless there was like a huge sign over the front porch that says something like "guns inside safe, don't break in and steal them, please." I think we have to assume that the 2 intruders must have somehow known, right? Like, how do they know that there's guns in this house? It could be that they're just straight up known. It could be like brother-in-laws, coworkers or something. We don't know. Or it could be something more subtle, like dude had a NRA sticker in the back of his truck window, and after a little while, someone's like, that house definitely has guns. We need some guns. Let's go check it out.
Maybe.
We don't know.
I think the point to what you're getting at, though, is that it behooves us. There's a fancy word.
Behooves.
Yeah.
To behoove?
Behooves us to be careful in the information that we put out there, that we allow people to know. I mean, if you're advertising the fact that you got guns, well, that may make you a target. If you're constantly showing things off, telling all your neighbors, about this or that, oh, hey, check out this new one I just got. That neighbor says something to another neighbor, who says something to another friend or a coworker, or that coworker is like, hey, I got a lead on, so-and-so's got a new gun. And, it sounds like he's got a bunch of guns. And anyway, so you want to be careful about the information that you put out there. And that even includes, as you just pointed out, my wife and I go on daily walks through our neighborhood, and I didn't used to walk all the time, but we do now.
See aforementioned comment about steps.
Yeah.
Continue.
And it's fascinating what you learn about people when you move at a leisurely pace through a neighborhood, because you're like, that dude's got guns. That dude's got guns. Oh, that dude's got guns. Well, I keep saying dude. I guess it could be lady, but it's usually a pickup truck with, plastered stickers in the back window of, NRA, Sig Sauer, Glock, you know, et cetera, et cetera. Or my favorite is the one that has a sticker on their house window or something that says, you know, something to the effect about 9 millimeter. Well, 38 special, 9 millimeter, 45, whatever, all being faster than, you know, a call to 911 or something like that. And so, like, that kind of information tells me all I need to know about who you are and what you likely have in that home. Anyway, I'll step off that soapbox.
Yeah, behoove uh, is it is a duty or responsibility for someone to do something. Verb. So yeah, I mean, I remember a story many years ago, right after I started getting into guns. At the time, I was living in Utah, and there was a family, a college professor, and his wife and children, all murdered in their home. And very specifically, it was clear that they were targeted because of their extraordinarily impressive firearm collection, which had all been stolen.
Yeah, it's a thing.
Yeah, that's a thing.
So that's a
But
good lesson.
good, a kid shooting handgun. So this presumes that a kid had access to handgun. Kid knows how to use handgun. Kid is of a large enough stature to manage said handgun, though we don't know what caliber it was, and that he was highly efficient because both these dudes, I think, eventually died, if I recall.
Yeah, they were found dead.
Yeah,
in the home.
yeah, dead, done.
So
yeah,
this is
also
where I get
one more thing. Sorry,
yeah.
This random detail here.
Mhm.
We don't get this very often. These guys are older than your average home intruders.
Yeah.
So we see a lot of home intruders that are, I'll call them age 15 to about 25. But our two dead dudes here are ages 44 and 51.
Yeah. I mean, criminals are going to criminal regardless of the age they are. But yeah, I agree. It's, you know, it seems in recent history that so many of this, I mean, other stories that we're going to share today are going to be in that, like you just said, 15 to 25-year-old range. But the other thing about this is it drives me nuts when we have government officials and legislators that feel the need to legislate us, telling us on, you know, the decisions we have to make inside our home with respect to guns, how they're stored, and who has access to them. And we're always of the belief that it should be done responsibly, but what's responsible for one household may be a little bit different or may look a little different for another household. I should have the right to know and understand my children, and, you know, including, well, now I have an 18-year-old that lives in the home. You know, like he obviously is of a legal age to have access to guns, technically legally. You know, but before he was 18, it's like, you know, he's responsible. He understands how to use it. He's pretty effective. He's a good shooter. There's times that he is the one that's home alone or is home with his siblings watching them. So if something were to happen while mom and dad are away, I'd like him to be able to do something about that.
Yes.
You know? Anyway,
hey,
here's another.
Dude.
Yep.
This month is the 9-year anniversary of our podcast.
Yeah.
So your 18-year-old was 9 years old when we started looking at these stories.
I know, right?
Oh,
crazy.
Yeah.
9 years.
9 years.
Missouri? Let's do it. Fatal shooting in rural Missouri, believed to be self-defense. KCTV5.com. Tell us about it, Jacob.
Benton County, Missouri.
I like this story.
All right. So it says that this took place near a, quote, rural Missouri amphitheater. But we also know that it must be residential in nature because it talks later in the story about this dude coming in and out of his house.
Mm-hmm.
So we're in a residential area that happens to have, that's rural, and that is in that area is an amphitheater. I suppose technically there's an amphitheater in my neighborhood. I don't think we've ever used it as an amphitheater ever, but some designer somewhere thought it would be a cool thing to put in a little park by the house. So there's an amphitheater, rural area, neighborhood. All right. So this is 3:50 p.m. on Thursday, February 13th. These guys get the call. And what we have is we got a guy. The narrative is that he's got a knife, and there's a picture of a knife in the story. It is a beastly, serious looking thing.
They describe it as a knife. It's not a knife. It's a cane sword, dude.
Okay, it's a sword.
This is the type. It's got the kind of like a bird's head. It's not a bird. But it's that. Something. It's a cane handle. This was in a cane. I am almost certain of it.
It's big.
Yeah,
and it's sharp and it's scary looking.
Yeah.
So dude's got this thing and he's assaulting people. There's a little bit of a freak out. There's a little, some incident kind of thing, but then he goes back in the house.
Yep.
Okay. And let me find it here. So, okay, video footage, blah, blah, blah. Okay. So he confronted a vehicle that attempted to leave and tried to assault the drivers. He stabbed the vehicle multiple times. And then it says, quote, this is the funny part. A woman emerged from him, the stabber, from the stabber's home and screamed for help as she ran to a neighbor's house. Now, we don't know who this woman is. It doesn't specify his wife, his girlfriend, his daughter, his mother. It just says a woman emerged from his home and screamed for help as she ran to a neighbor's house. So the neighbors hear all this drama. They're like, someone's screaming and running toward our house. And, the bad guy, the stabber dude, he follows, chases, comes after the woman, and the neighbors engage and shoot. And he loses. The bad, good guys prevail. Stabber guy, no more.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, this is again, like you pointed out, we don't know for sure if this was a domestic violence incident or exactly what the circumstances of this were, but multiple people were involved. Multiple people are witnesses to this. This man, I mean, to me, it reads like some kind of domestic sort of thing. But I'm just, that's just how it feels. But dude had a large knife or a relatively short sword. But like I said, I'm pretty sure it came out of a cane. And he was trying to hurt somebody with this. And the neighbor that responded, they obviously felt like they did what they needed to do. It's, I think, a pretty clear-cut case of self-defense.
Seems pretty clean.
Yep.
This is an interesting one because I think this is sort of like no one's immune kind of deal. Like this could happen to any of us anytime. Like your neighbors has some drama. You have no control over that.
Yep.
A domestic incident that happens everywhere in America every day.
Yep.
Screaming. Someone comes running toward your front door. They're being chased by a dude with this massive freaking knife. Maybe you recognize him, maybe you don't. This could happen to any one of us.
An edged dagger as he assaulted multiple individuals. Exactly right. I mean,
he stabbed a vehicle. That's kind of hard to do.
Yeah, there's a photo, like I said, of the sword or knife, dagger, whatever, and you'll see it's all bent. So presumably that happened as he's trying to stab this vehicle and probably bent it, would be my guess. But yeah, wild situation, like you said. And we don't have to get involved in other people's problems, but sometimes those problems find us, even when we don't want them. And that could be what happened here, and like you step outside your home and I mean, stuff happens really quickly when you least expect it sometimes.
Yeah.
I mean, how often do you just walk out your door and you're just thinking, hey, I'm just grabbing an Amazon package. But you could be opening your door, walking out just as a deranged neighbor of yours that's had a mental break who is chasing after somebody, or maybe he's running away from something and runs right into you, right across your front lawn. And here you are just trying to grab an Amazon package. Like, stuff can happen really, really fast. Well, looks like we have some more comments. Deep South EDC watching today. Yeah, yep. Good to have you watching and joining us live in the podcast today. He says it wasn't forged correctly. I mean, it's relatively soft steel.
Could have been an Amazon
with
special.
The way it bent, but
Amazon doesn't sell knives.
Whether something is forged properly or not, still going to stab you, still going to cut you, if somebody wants to, So anyway, it reminds me of an article I read years ago from Greg Ellifritz on his blog, where he talked about just buying like gas station knives for just to have something for a throwaway. Like, hey, it's a cheap knife, cheap steel. It doesn't matter. It's still gonna poke holes in people when you need it to, kind of thing. Anyway, anything else on this one?
No, I had some funny comments about knives, but I'll hold them.
All right. Out of Harris County, Texas, man arrested after road rage incident with armed woman, officials say. So Harris County is basically Houston, right? Houston's a huge city, has a large police department, has quite a few violent incidents there.
It's been on
it's
the
a
struggle
huge
bus
city.
recently. Yeah.
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 Man is in custody following a road rage incident with woman in North Harris County. Okay, this happened last Thursday. Here's the first thing. Okay,
Okay, hold on. How did you know
sure.
that? Did you see the word Thursday, or did you mathematically, like on the fly, just now calculate? Today's the 20th, and this was on the 13th, and you're like 7 days. That's like I'm just curious.
Yep. That's exactly what it is. It says Thursday, and I looked at the published date, and it must have been last Thursday.
Riley's fast with the math. So I'm just wondering where you're. Okay, so continue. Just trying to get inside Riley's head sometimes.
Here's the first thing. This is a road rage incident, and unfortunately, we see a number of these examples. It happens quite regularly. We have road rage incidents that, in some cases, unfortunately, I say unfortunately because it does not paint concealed carriers in a good light. But times where you have two people that road rage, get into an altercation, and guns get involved, and shots are fired. And in some cases, it may be justified. In other cases, it may be justified and still not the right moral thing, because you still engaged in a road rage incident that you didn't have to engage in. It didn't have to, turn into this whole big thing.
But to be fair, too, we don't know if the innocent party, in this case, the shooter, the defender, did anything
I'm
wrong.
not saying that about this, by the way. This is a general.
Get picked on.
This is a general.
Okay, all right.
I'm generalizing about how often we talk about and see road rage incidents.
Sure.
And so many of them
where you have two aggressors
could have been avoided.
Sure.
Or should have been avoided. Don't know that's the case with this one. I was going to make that clear. All right. That was the next thing that was going to come out of my mouth is we don't know that about this one. And in fact, what we have is a male suspect who is assaulting a female driver. And the male has presumably got out of this other vehicle. There's a little bit of video here from surveillance camera or something.
It's far away, so it looks like maybe it's like on a building, and the building's next to the highway where this is taking place or something.
Yep.
Yeah.
And by the way, all the links to today's episode today's episode stories you can find in the show notes on the website where this is published when this podcast goes live,
or in whatever podcast app you use.
You'll find these stories. So if you want to go read these for yourselves, see the surveillance video, see the news reporting, whatever, that's why we always provide those links. But what we have here is also witness statements saying that the suspect was choking the female driver in this vehicle. So from the video, it looks like she's begun to maybe get out, or she's at least opened her door, and the suspect is in the door of the vehicle, and witness statements say that he was in the act of choking her.
So that's not how I see the video. I think the window is down. So it
could be window.
Yeah, you have the male driver who's in this case, we'll label him the attacker, but he's kind of in the front of the pack, and he's slow. This is on a highway. It looks to be a highway to me. And he slows down to the point of stopping all this traffic behind him.
He pulls in front of her.
Yeah, he kind of blocks both lanes, and he's upset with the woman behind him. And there's kind of a moment of hesitation where it's not clear what he's doing. She tries to kind of go around him, like over on the shoulder, and he moves his car more to further block her ability to get around him. And then he gets out of his car and attacks. But I don't see her car door ever open.
Okay,
my presumption
it doesn't matter either way.
No.
Okay, window down, door open, doesn't matter.
I think it does. There is some commentary to be made if she tried to exit the vehicle. So I think it's relevant.
Okay. I either didn't notice or don't remember. I watched this hours ago.
I think the attack took place through the window.
Okay.
Regardless, it's physical.
It doesn't matter though. But my point is, because if he's got hands on her and is choking her, whether she's opened her door or whether her window's down, like he's in the act of choking her.
Agreed that it doesn't have any impact on her justification, her decision in that moment. But if she tried to exit the vehicle, that would be something worth commenting on. Was it wise of her to exit the vehicle?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, and yes, I just basically talked about how we should try to avoid road rage incidents.
Right.
One of those would be like, don't get out of the car.
Right.
Don't escalate. Try not to engage.
But and along those lines, as long as I'm making a point out of this, roll up the window, lock the doors.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Right? Like this could have been avoided if the window had been rolled up and the door had been locked, because this guy did not come with any weapons. He's there's no reason to believe, from what we can see or read, that he had a knife or a gun or a blunt instrument. Like, as far as we can tell, just bare hands starts choking this chick. through the, is chick derogatory? Can I say chick? I don't remember. If you guys could comment, let me know if I'm allowed to say chick. He starts choking this chick through the window. And so anyway, that I think it is relevant in terms of what we might take from this, that you can roll the window, lock the. If I was dealing with some crazy whack job who's blocking me in traffic and we're at a dead stop now, I'd roll up my window. I'd make sure my doors were locked.
Yep, 100%. That's very, very wise. Like why this man had access to her directly is absolutely relevant question. Deep South says chick is fine. Please don't go woke on us.
Okay, I'm allowed to say chick, at least according to Deep South, Eric.
According to Deep South.
Yeah, okay. If anybody else has any opinions on
Anyway,
chick, email us or something.
Yeah, so why he was able to get his hands on her, very relevant question. But the fact is he did.
Yes.
At that point, she draws a gun and shoots him, hits him once. He's treated at the hospital, presumably going to survive.
He drives off, by the way.
Is charged with this assault. Yeah, right.
He gets shot, kind of stumbles in the medium, hits the ground, dusts himself off, gets back in his car, and drives away.
Yeah. Kind of a wild, situation there. I mean, my takeaway from this is there are times, like we just talked about, the importance of trying to not engage in road rage. It does not often end very well for a lot of people, especially when it gets escalated like this. But the reality is that we all at some point will probably do something that makes some other driver on the road unhappy with us.
Yeah.
And I've seen it happen. We've probably all seen it, and some of us have even participated to some extent or another. Where, I mean, I'll just say one time I remember I was actually driving my pickup, towing a trailer. This was years ago when I was still doing construction work, towing a trailer, driving along, and I'm towing a trailer. I'm not going to go, as fast as like other people might.
Yeah, right. You were swerving in and out of traffic,
But this guy was like, he seemed like very impatient with me. He wanted to get around me. It was just a 2-lane road, but there was cars coming, and finally he gets a break, and he shoots around in a real huff, but kind of dangerously, and like swerves really violently in front of me. And I just kind of gave a little tap on the horn, like, hey, knock it off kind of thing. And that's all it took for that guy to lock up his brakes and cause me to lock up my brakes and very narrowly run into the back of him, which was pretty, exciting at the time because I had the trailer. And so just that, you just never know who you're messing with, and that little laying on the horn or something is all it takes to set somebody off sometimes.
Someone flipped off my 16-year-old son. Wait, how old is he now?
He's
17.
17.
Someone flipped off my 17-year-old son yesterday morning as he was driving to school, and he said he didn't do anything wrong. The guy was trying to make an illegal turn, and so my son honked so he wouldn't hit him, and then the guy flipped him off.
Yeah. So be wise, be smart, be prudent out there,
and stop flipping off teenage drivers. Jeez, guys, get a grip.
That would be quite a wild twist, on the story if I also was like, oh, that was me, Jacob.
He would have recognized you. So this next story, we're including 2 different links.
I wouldn't have flipped him off.
Thank you. 2 different links are in the show notes for this next one. One of them might require a subscription. Yeah. I was able to read it once, but then when I went back a second time to read it, it blocked and said I had to give them money. So there's a second link in here that Riley also included.
Yep. That's right. And this is the story we teased a little while ago about a Decatur, Illinois mom who is at home. 3 intruders come into the home, and she defends herself, all while holding a baby on her hip, which, I mean, I think that's the detail that I read this and I'm like, oh yeah, this is the title of the podcast, even, like this is the whole shebang. Like this is wild stuff right here, and wild in that it is quite a wild story, but I am always impressed and inspired by stories like this because, I mean, what survival instinct, what mama bear instinct, what, and it could have been a father, the same with his child, but like this is where the rubber meets the road as far as like, this is why we should have the right for self-defense. I mean, besides above and beyond our personal defense of our individual selves, but like, you're a mom, you're a father, you're at home with, I think there was like I think it was a 9-month baby and a 2-year-old
Yeah.
child,
5 months,
or 5-month
five
old
month and a 2-year-old.
and
Yeah.
a 2-year-old.
Yeah.
You know, 3 intruders come in and they're armed. And I mean, this is wild style right here. As far as this is what it's all about, protecting those babies.
Yeah. Pretty intense. I have opened the second news story right now, and it doesn't have this detail, but the first one specifies that over 30 shots were fired in this encounter.
Which
I think like 33 or something like that. It's freaking
I
nuts.
don't know how that. Yeah, that is nuts. I don't
Yeah.
know who was firing all those shots.
Well, there's one very specific moment in this particular narrative that I want to focus on. But should we get into this?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. So you have this woman. She's home with these 2 children. It's not clear if she's a single mom or if her husband's not there. We don't know. But she appears to be in the home, just her and these 2 kids, the 5-month-old and 2-year-old. And armed intruders, plural, break in. Okay. Now, she announced her presence and told them she was armed. Something to the effect maybe of, "Hey, I'm armed. Get out of my house." Something like that. We don't. Something along those lines. Clearly, in both stories, it made it clear that she announced her presence, and in one of the stories, it specified that she told them she was armed.
Yep.
Now, in that moment, this is the moment that I think is interesting in the narrative. They shot it. They started shooting at her. In this story, it says, caused the suspects to fire upon her. Okay. Now she returns fire, but in this hailstorm of bullets, 30-something shots total fired.
Yep.
She gets shot twice.
Yep.
Once in the
arm,
left forearm, left forearm,
yep,
and once in the right hip.
Yep.
And as it were, that right hip is where she happens to be in the moment, holding the 5-month-old child. So imagine, in one hand, I'm holding my 5-month-old child balanced against my hip, and in the left hand, presumably, is the gun. And I'm, working the gun, bang, 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 and I take a shot in the gun arm. The hand that's the one arm that's doing the shooting takes a shot. And it's not clear if she continued to be able to, shoot the gun after that, or how bad the injury was. But imagine that's how this works. And we talk about, when we talk about training to shoot one-handed, we talk about a lot of potential justifications for that. In this story, we get 2 justifications for one-handed shooting. One, that the odds of you taking an injury in an arm in a gunfight are real. And that's exactly what happened here.
Yes.
She took a shot in a shooting arm. And we also often talk about, the other hand could be occupied potentially with holding or restraining a child or somebody like that. And that's exactly what she's doing too. So she had to engage one-handed, and then the one hand she had potentially went down in this fight.
I mean, yeah, it all depends on where that bullet strikes and how much damage it does, whether it cuts any, tendons or breaks bones and things like that. But she obviously gets shots off. We don't know who fired how many or what. What it says here is just that police arrived. It was just after 4 a.m., by the way. So something happened. I guess these guys probably broke in, probably woke up, the 5-month-old, and that's why she's holding the baby, an infant daughter, it says. And and then she fires. But you mentioned she announced her presence, and likely that she was armed or something to that effect. And they started firing almost immediately upon her announcing that she knew they were there.
Yeah,
I think that's a really critical detail, really worth paying attention to, because how many people? I mean, give you an example of something similar, not exactly the same, but similar thing and a similar purpose. People will talk about, like, well, I've got the 12 gauge in the closet, and I'm going to go ching ching, and let them know, hey, got a shotgun here, and that's going to scare them off. Not necessarily. Plus, what's to keep them from firing, over their shoulder at you while they are running away? And that could have been what happened here. We don't know. But the point is like announcing that you're there or where you are or what you have or whatever doesn't serve a purpose in a lot of, I mean, you can issue challenges, you are welcome to do that. It's certainly well within your right, but you need to understand that as soon as you open your mouth or do something, and I do think this is really key in like a home invasion type environment, because it's one thing to maybe try to challenge something outside of the home, but you're in your home, you're in your domain, you know your home better than anybody else. You should know where you can take up cover, and you should do that. And then you probably don't want to advertise your position if you can help it, right?
I got mixed feelings on that.
Well,
I don't
go
know if
ahead.
I'm totally in agreement. One other detail that's relevant here, by the way, is it says that in addition to the shots that were fired from within the house, there were also shots fired into the bedroom through the bedroom window from outside the house. Not sure if that's a different a different attacker or the same attackers that were in the house as they ran away. Maybe they shot some more shots, into the house from outside. It's not clear. But the point is, this was not like a she's got a gun, bang bang, let's run. Like this was like a prolonged gunfight. There's over 30 shots fired in the house. So, but anyway, I guess come back to your comment. I don't think I am inherently against the idea of making an announcement.
I'm not saying I'm totally against it,
I think
but
that
advising that.
taking up cover is the key thing you said, and I think
Excuse me.
I'm certainly on board with that. Right, this idea of like, hey, I'm gonna seek a position of strength
Mhm.
and a position of cover, and I'm gonna say, hey, I got my 2-year-old, he's right there. I got my 5-month-old, he's right here. I'm gonna take this position of cover. Where I'm in a position of strength. Maybe I'm putting a fatal funnel. Maybe there's a hallway or stairs or something between me and where I hear all these sounds coming from. And I'm going to grab my phone. I'm going to start working the 911, and I'm waiting and I'm looking. And at some point, me making an announcement, I don't see an issue with that. That doesn't bother me at all.
I, okay, so I disagree with you saying I don't see an issue with that, because I think it's situationally dependent, and you need to understand the situation you're in as best as you can. I think I would advise caution about some of what you just said, and just because of I think this is a fine example of the risk that you take there. If I know, okay, so here's the thing: if I know I have intruders, if I know where or about where they are, if I have reasonable belief that they might cause harm to me of any sort, okay, which is a requirement in certain states, like here in Colorado. It's a fairly low standard, but like I have intruders. I believe they might harm me. Okay, got to meet those conditions. Um, if I have the opportunity to engage them, by golly, I want to ambush the heck out of them. That's my feel. I'm not saying you can't challenge or issue commands. I'm not saying you shouldn't, but I am saying that you should probably read the situation and make the best decision that you can. And that if I issue a command, that might provide the opportunity for them to engage me first. And then I'm behind the power curve again.
Yeah, I guess this might be the second or third time you and I just blatantly disagree.
Okay.
Because I disagree. I think that the statistical probability is that by making the announcement, I will diffuse the situation, and that they will leave. And so, if I know that I got my family isolated, we're in in a protected space, and I put there's some amount of distance between me and the attacker, and I'm in a position of strength and cover, then yeah,
But here's the
I'm
thing.
good.
What do you have in your home that's actually significant cover?
Okay, so now we got into cover. Okay, this is fair. This is super fair. But I did use the word cover, didn't I?
Yes.
Okay, so I our industry at large loves to draw a hard line between cover and concealment.
Yep.
I don't like it. I don't do that. I think
Mhm.
it's silly, in fact. So let's just hash that out as briefly as I can. So traditionally, we think of cover as something that for sure or reasonably so will stop oncoming bullets, and concealment is something that reasonably will not stop oncoming bullets. The problem is it's a range. It's not like a black and white thing. Some things are semi good at stopping bullets or might deflect bullets a little bit, etc. And that's only a conversation about the actual ballistic value of the thing I'm putting between me
Mhm.
and the oncoming bullets. It's not about the tactical value
Mhm.
of what I'm putting between me and the oncoming bullets. So yeah, it's true that in the house, probably the only thing that every American has that's going to stop bullets is a water heater full of water. There's other things. Maybe you got a bookcase. Maybe you got a filing cabinet. There's a hand. You know, there's other potential things. But that said, there are things that are maybe not ideal cover, but they are somewhat cover. They're a certain form or type of what I might deem an acceptable cover in some circumstances. And certainly, if they conceal me, I consider that valuable.
Concealment is hugely valuable.
Yeah.
It is rare that we see somebody try to engage another person through cover or through concealment. But here's the problem with this, though, is you have 3 intruders, possibly all 3 of them are armed. Seems reasonable since there's so many bullet holes.
We actually get a lot of details about this.
Yeah.
The 16-year-old gave the gun to the 20-year-old. The 20-year-old gave their gun to the 24-year-old. So at least there's at least
right.
2 guns involved.
Yeah. So at least, yeah, that's right. There's at least the 2 guns. 30 bullet holes. It says the house is riddled with bullet holes. They don't care about aimed fire.
They don't care about cover and
who they
concealment,
hit.
or
They don't care.
they're probably not even looking at what they're shooting at.
They're just blasting away.
Yeah.
You know, and so at that point, the argument of, you know, well, I've got reasonable cover, whatever that is, or concealment, and that I'm reasonably protected, it kind of, I think, goes out the window a little bit in most American residential homes due to the fact there's just not a whole lot stopping bullets in a house. So
I think you got to think about your context. Like I think that we pre-plan some of these things, and other times we're kind of caught off guard, right? Like it's 3 dudes breaking into my house, and I'm in my family room watching TV. I'm going to have a challenge putting myself in a position of strength and decent cover, before I could make an announcement. But you know, I'm upstairs in my 2-story home, and I hear some noises, and I put myself in a position of strength at the top of the stairwell / entryway. Yeah. I think I do have good opportunity there.
Let me give you kind of here's the Riley brain part of this. I'll paint a scenario for you. If I was concealed, right? Whether just because of darkness, I mean, hopefully I've got myself, you know, in a doorway or something, and I'm minimizing my exposure or whatever that is. But if I could see these intruders, and I know they know, like, I get the sense they know that I'm not, or they don't know I'm there, right? Like they're just doing their thing. They're ransacking the place. They're grabbing, my laptop off the table or whatever. You know, like they're in the business of robbing my house. But I can see them, and I'm like, I'm positioned. I have reasonable cover. I've got my gun ready for use. I might in that moment go, stop right, or let me not necessarily stop, or maybe I'll say stop. I don't know. Get out of the house. I'll shoot, kind of thing. Whatever. Just imagine the scenario, but I might issue a challenge command if I'm right there ready to immediately follow it up with force should they turn to try to address me.
Sounds like a great time for an announcement.
Okay. That's a situation where that might be appropriate.
Yeah.
But there's other times where I may not want to reveal myself.
And I didn't say I would universally. I said that I don't see any issue with it as a concept, as a theory.
Okay, I didn't say
and I think that
I said we should be wise in our use of it.
Okay, sure. But I don't think that we can condemn it in the story we're reading.
Not condemning it.
I think we have to acknowledge that this is an outlier, not to suggest that it's rare, like it's never happened. Oh my gosh, holy crap, she made an announcement and they attacked. No, we've seen that many times. But I do think we also have to acknowledge that a lot of the time, and I'm going to go out on a limb and say I think more than half of the time, an announcement does diffuse the situation. It causes the bad guys to say, oh, bummer. We thought we had the drop. We thought that this house was empty, or we thought these people were asleep. Turns out they're not. They say they have a gun. Let's bail.
Let me see if I can put a stamp on this in a manner that sort of brings us to a little more of a consensus.
Balance.
And I love the fact that we're even having the debate, because that's what this is all about. You and I are of 2 different minds in many respects. We agree on a lot of things. Here's what I would say. If you're going to issue a challenge command, do it with the understanding that you need to be prepared for action immediately.
Yeah, super
well. If
you're
not ready, then that's where you're just going to get in trouble. Like if you think that announcing yourself or challenging them or chink with your shotgun when you're not actually ready, like you think you just blindly believe they're going to automatically skedaddle, then I think you're setting yourself up for failure.
Agreed, 100%.
All right.
I'm
Cool.
remembering, in fact, one quick one. Do you remember the story? This is a couple years ago. This dude has a bunker in it underneath his house, and his house is for sale. And Zillow, like, puts pictures of this thing all over Instagram and Twitter. It's like the Zillow featured, like, look at this house with this survival bunker. And some whack job dude who thinks that Russia is going to nuke America in the upcoming days breaks in order to like take over the bunker.
Yeah.
And like there was no world where that dude was going to like, oh, someone's home, I'm going to run away now. He was like, no, I'm going to slaughter everyone in this house and I'm going to go live in that bunker.
Yep.
And I'm going to survive the upcoming nuclear holocaust.
Yep.
So yes, like I think that we have to remember that some of these people are serious.
Yes.
And taking a position of strength, I'll just summarize it that way, being prepared for action is a critical part of any home defense strategy when able to do. So yes, I think we've reconciled our differences sufficiently for my taste.
Well, we are at the hour plus mark with the podcast. Let's just do one more story here. For folks, the reason why we have all the stories in the show notes too is there's a lot of times bonus stories that we don't always get to, and so you're always welcome to go and check out some of the others. Jacob, I'm going to jump now to this one here. It says, update, man charged after female employee shoots him in Pensacola Holiday Inn altercation. I like this one because it brings a little something different to the discussion today, in that this one appears to me to have a little bit of a physical altercation involved, meaning like the need for hand-to-hand skills and combatives, including entanglement with a gun involved, is something that's worth thinking about and perhaps pursuing training on. It's not something that's like, it's really easy for us to focus on the gun training side of things. Like, I'm going to get really good with my gun. I'm going to take gun classes. I'm going to take shooting classes, all this stuff. But don't forget that there's also other things that are good for us to know. And this, I think, potentially is a story that kind of helps support that a little bit more. So what happens here is, this happened in Pensacola, Florida. 35-year-old man who apparently is like, he has a relationship with this woman.
He's a creep. He's a stalker.
Yeah, she has reported or talked about how he said that he had previously stalked her using social media, had gone to her place of employment before. So he's a known individual that has done something similar. And on this particular day, just like a week and a couple days ago, it was Tuesday, or a little bit more. Anyways, about 2 weeks ago, basically, he goes to her place of work. He knows where she works. He's been stalking her, following her on social media. So he shows up at her work and approaches her in the laundry room. Yeah, she's an employee. She's just doing her thing.
It's a Holiday Inn, if we didn't already say. Did we say that?
Yeah, Holiday Inn. Yeah. He approaches her in the laundry room, which, by the way, if you've ever seen a hotel laundry room, it's a relatively confined space. There's usually one door in and out. It's like, this is an uncomfortable thing for sure for her. And it said that, let's see here, he approached her, it led to an argument, and then she, fearing for her safety, shot the man.
James immediately began punching the female employee.
I knew there was something about.
Well, it's a weird story because the way it's formatted, you have the original story at the bottom, and then they publish like an update above it. So in the update, we get that he immediately began punching the female employee when he approached her in the laundry room.
Yep. Yeah. So he's close enough that this is
throwing punches.
This is a hand-to-hand combatives type situation. Like, you got to defend yourself, right? He's probably punching her because she's already turned him down in the past. He clearly has a thing for her. He's stalking her, and he's frustrated or upset or whatever. Punches her.
We're going to gain control here. He needs control.
And all it says is that she shot him in the leg out of self-defense. Now, the thing that we don't know is, was this shot in the leg because she just shanked the shot way low and left or something and hit him in the leg? Or was it because she pulls a gun out and he gets and it turns into this scramble for the gun, and she just happens to get a shot off in his leg? We just don't know the nature of that. It doesn't really matter. The point of the story, of kind of why it caught my attention and I wanted to share it, was the importance of being able to defend ourselves in a entanglement type situations where we're basically within arm's reach of another person and they're trying to harm us and we've got a gun. What do we do with that in a situation like that? What do we do about the gun? I mean, there's legal questions to ask there, like when am I justified to use that gun when it's just a hand-to-hand type, kind of fight here. There's also questions about the timing of, if I have made the decision that I'm justified in using deadly force, when's the right time to get that gun involved? Because by it coming out of the holster, now it can end up in my opponent's hand and he could use it against me. And so there's just some really important considerations there to be mindful of.
Kind of a different skill set in some respects.
Absolutely.
Grappling with a gun is a pretty unique standalone. I shouldn't say standalone, but it's a unique skill set. And
it goes above and beyond the view of just you and target and you shooting target. Like now target's trying to take gun from you potentially.
Yeah.
So
but
that's a big problem.
Success in this one. She, whether on purpose or not, she gets a shot off, and whether on purpose or not, it hits that dude in the leg, and that ends the confrontation.
And it presumably saves her life. I mean, so there you go. It's interesting story. Like I said, out of Pensacola, Florida. There we go. That's where we're gonna wrap it up here for today. Anything else?
Nope. Good happy times.
A reminder that today's episode is sponsored by CCW Safe, which you can learn more about and find at ccwsafe.com. And also KSG Armory holsters. You can go to ksgarmory.com. I don't know that I mentioned the links in the beginning part of the episode. Links for the sponsors also in the show notes of each episode too. So thank you to your support of our sponsors that make it possible to keep doing what we do here at concealedcarry.com and the Concealed Carry podcast. Last words?
Nothing. I got nothing.
It's been a while, I think, since we said something like this, but hey, we'd like to encourage you to subscribe to the podcast in your favorite podcast app, or subscribe to us on a YouTube channel. Some of you like to catch it on YouTube or on Facebook. Make sure you're liking and following our Facebook page. The podcast goes live on Facebook page, goes live on YouTube regularly each week. And so subscribe. Make sure you don't miss any future episodes. Feel free to share it with your friends, family, and those that care about this kind of stuff and this content. And until next time, a reminder to train right, train often, and train safe so you can fight hard, fight fast, and fight true. Take care.